15th at 8:28 p.m. Let the record show that Thomas Duncan is not present. All the other members are present and accounted for. Item 2 on the consent agenda, we have one item that's consideration possible action, approval of minutes.
So move.
Second. We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
I'm sorry, that went so quick and we couldn't hear you. Could you, who was the motion and who was the second?
Mary had the motion and
Thank you, appreciate it.
John had the second, and motion passed 5-0. Moving on to item number 3, new business. Letter A, consideration of possible action, variance to create an irregular shaped lot and variance from the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio, VARP 19-00013. This is a request of Javier Carta Martinez, the applicant, on behalf of Marcela Suaste, owner, for approval of variance permitted in section 2.6.1.1B1 of the Unified Development Code Ordinance Number 2000T to allow for approval of creation of an irregular shaped lot and a variance from the 3-to-1 depth ratio in the Fort Bend County portion of the City of Pearland ETJ. General location is the east side of Doreen Avenue, about 100 feet south of North Teague Street. Do I hear a motion for approval? I have a motion from Laney and a second from Mary. We're in discussion.
Yes, sir. This item is, as you stated earlier, is a request for a variance from the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio, and also for the creation of an irregular lot located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction in Fort Bend County. This next slide shows the location of the applicant's property in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, and it is right on the boundary being within our extraterritorial jurisdiction near Arcola. The next slide shows the plat as submitted by the applicant that was also sent to Fort Bend County for their review and approval process. The next slide shows that based on our regulations in the UDC, any remainder tracts within the ETJ must be at least 10 acres in size. However, this remainder tract is a little bit over 2 acres in size. So we would prefer that the remainder portion of the parent tract be included within the plat, so we'd have 2 separate lots that would be part of a minor plat application. The next slide shows our criteria approval. This meets the criteria for approval for the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio and the irregular lot. The only change that we would recommend is that the variance be approved with condition that the entirety of the parent tract be included within the minor plat application to create 2 lots. And that concludes my staff presentation.
Commissioners have any questions? Is the owner okay with that condition?
I believe the owner is here tonight. If you'd like, or a representative of the owner. Did you want to speak on this item, sir? If you'd come on up to the podium.
I have a question. Here in the staff, where the staff has said no each time, it says remainder tracts in ETJ need to be acres or more, need to be acres or more. Should there be a number there?
They need to be at least 10 acres or more.
Thank you.
So if you could state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Javier Carta Martinez. I live in 2903 in Guarra Court. First of all, yeah, we agree with the condition of the Planning Commission And we want to say thank you for the help that we received from the planning, city planning. And well, that's
Okay.
about it. I like, people around here are really helpful with the planning work. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you were okay with the recommendation of staff. Somebody want to add that? Amend the motion?
I'll amend the, excuse me, amend the motion to add staff's recommendation.
So we have a motion and a second to amend. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh,
Could
All
you
those in
remind
fa-
us who seconded it? Was it Mr. Pradia? Thank you.
any other discussion?
What is the amendment?
To add staff's recommendation. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion to amend passes. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, we have an amended motion on the table. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for waiting around, sir. It was a long night. Moving on to item B in our agenda, consideration possible action, amendments to Unified Development Code, UDC number T30. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Second.
So I have a motion from Mr. Wickers and a second from Troy. Staff have anything to add to the material that was presented earlier in our joint meeting?
Nothing additional.
The commissioners have any questions for staff?
I do. On the removal of the parking lot prohibition within the front yard, it's yard, is that specific to a grass yard? Is it specific to something
So the Unified Development Code defines front yard as from the front building, from the front face of the building to the front property line at the edge of the right-of-way. So that's when we're talking about front yard, we're talking about that area.
and this is business and residence? Or just business?
Correct, but the 25-foot would only be for properties on Broadway and Main. And last time I checked, I don't recall there
Residence.
being any residences that front out to either.
So I'm trying to picture this in my head. 15 foot is from the east, or landscape buffer would be from the street in?
From the property line. We deal in property
From the
lines.
property line in 15 feet.
Correct.
And then you could park.
Correct. Similar to.
You were saying
Porter
15
Road.
feet, and I thought it was 25, no?
So it's 25 foot on Broadway and Main,
Mhm.
and then it's 15 foot on all other.
All the others, okay.
I'm just
Streets.
thinking of all the old town site streets and some of the development that's happened there and how parking, what that looks like, because the lots are really small. And I've seen some of those smaller developments with different businesses there around the park, and parking is an issue for them, but I still can't see how, but I'm okay with it. I'm sure that when people start doing this, they'll use it to the advantage, and certainly appreciate y'all putting all these together, because you're hearing the requests, so it makes sense. And certainly appreciate the LED lighting one. That's one we've been trying to get put in there for years. And hopefully that will stop that from here on out. And then maybe we can deal with the ugliness of the ones that are already installed later. Thank y'all. Any further questions for staff on that? No? Good. Any of the amendments? Any of the other ones? Oh, that one. Okay. Any further? Troy? Laney?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 5-0. Again, thank y'all for the work you did on that. Moving on to item 5, our discussion items, Commissioner Activity Report. Anyone?
I've just got one quick comment on on the meeting tonight with the Pasadena School District, and the mayor saying there's 5 different school districts in our ETJ. I don't know who would be the one to coordinate this, but it looks like it would be very helpful for the city, for the planning, and for all concerned if we could contact the various independent school districts and at least offer a hand in getting involved in their planning activities so that we don't have a school pop up in an area that is not as usable as it could be if more planning had gone into it. I guess what I'm saying is if you contact them and say, we'd like to work with you on your future development plan, and so that we know and you know what to expect, so that there's no surprises along the way. Just a comment. Everybody may not feel that way.
Thank you. Any further?
After the last meeting, I think when we had the pipeline discussion, I wanted to mention or try to discuss, I guess, a pipeline setback. Is there something in the UDC somewhere that says a number for the pipeline setback? I couldn't find it if there was. Is it in there?
I don't know of any.
I believe there's a section in the UDC. However, the way that it's worded now, for whatever reason, there were some amendments that I think changed what it originally was, and it didn't anticipate pipelines running through the middle of property. I think it anticipated that the pipelines would be around the borders or the edges of the property, and clearly that's not how pipelines go. I mean, they're going to go lateral from way up.
I don't think that's how
Way
developers work with
So-
pipelines that have already been there.
The setbacks say from the edge of the property to the pipeline, I think. Like, they put the buffer as though it's the edge of the property and not in the middle. And I think what you're saying is, can we address that and put it?
Is there a way we could put a number on it, like a
Right.
specific number, so we don't have this back and forth? We have a guideline. Would that be useful?
So the pipeline is discussed in section 3.2.14.2, and it says extra depth and width in certain cases. Additional depth shall be required by the Planning and Zoning Commission when a lot in a residential area backs up to a railroad right-of-way, high-pressure gas line, oil or gas pipeline, an electric transmission line with 69 kilovolt or higher, thoroughfare, an industrial area, or other land use that has a depreciating effect on the residential use of the property, and where no marginal access street or other street is provided at the rear of the lot. A depth in excess of 140 feet shall be required for a lot sides to any of these uses listed in the subsection. Additional width shall be required by the commission, but a width in excess of 75 feet shall not be required. So that's the only instance of additional feet that I've found within the UDC when it discusses
I think
pipelines.
we've brought that up years ago when we've had, I think of one subdivision on Dixie Farm Road that we discussed it. And we really didn't come to a conclusion about the meaning of that. The word shall in there is kind of interesting to me because it very few places in the UDC does it direct the Planning and Zoning Commission to do anything. And in this case, it uses the word shall. Now, is that just a mistake by the writers? Maybe. But when I look at it, I think it needs further discussion from the commission and legal and be quite honest, City Council. if they see that. If we need to strike it out of the UDC and we need to all agree that we're going to put pipelines right up next to houses, then so be it. Then the committee and the city council have made their choice. But I do think it's worth addressing in a joint meeting and discussing so that we have something that makes a little common sense on setbacks.
Also, I think we need to know whether we're talking about the pipeline or the pipeline easement. And I think it should say the easement.
Yeah, I think
Because we don't want, otherwise, I mean, I know that they have to go out there and locate where the pipeline is in the easement. And they need to do that. But I don't think that we should allow anyone to move closer to the pipeline simply because it's only in the middle of the easement and not on the edge.
I think
So
maybe
if we say from the edge of the easement, it should be in there.
If I could interject at this point and say that I've heard 3 commissioners start discussing the item. Clearly, I think the point of the discussion item is not to debate the merits and to regulate it, but you'd like to see additional regulations drafted. We've heard that. And I would caution against any additional discussion, as at this point it might become a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I also, one more thing, I'm sorry. In the agendas for joint sessions and for city council, there's a spot when they get to, during the items, it says, for someone in the audience to, it has a place for comments, citizen comments. I've lost the thing. It's got a place for persons wishing to speak for or against or applicant presentation. There's not something like that in our agenda specifically. Is there a way for us to add that? I don't know if Daniel's going to appreciate that, but there's a way for us to add that so there's more. It's like if there's a person here, so we know exactly when to. We don't miss anybody.
So typically, the testimony about something that's a zoning issue would be received at the joint public hearing and not during the P&Z meeting. So, but if for some reason a commissioner wanted to hear additional information, a commissioner can always ask somebody to the podium if there was an answer to a question like in regards to a developer making a change or a modification, or whether they're willing to do that. Of course, according to Robert's Rules of Order, the chair always has the discretion to allow additional testimony if the chair were so inclined, and any P&Z member could always ask the chair to exercise that discretion. But if what you're asking is, do we want to change the agendas and always have a public comment section for each item, that's something that we can consider if that's what y'all are so inclined to do.
If it's not necessary, then no. I just wondered, I was just looking at the agendas and thinking how different, they're very different. But there are some nights when we have a meeting without joint session. And I just wondered. Thank you.
Anything else? The next meeting is August 6th. Let staff know if August 5th. Sorry, I was tilted wrong. August 6th. 5th. 5th. August 5th. So just let them know if you can't make it. Okay. And I possibly could not, but I'll let you know as soon as possible. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, we'll adjourn at 8:47.